Niccolo Machiavelli grasped a profound element of human behavior that is often ignored in the modern world. Silence, far from being a sign of weakness, is one of the most effective instruments of power. This ancient yet timeless insight has been demonstrated repeatedly throughout history, where the most effective strategists were not those who spoke constantly, but those who mastered the art of saying nothing at all until the right moment arrived. In a society overwhelmed by constant talking, by an incessant desire to be seen and heard, we have largely abandoned this subtle form of strength. When a leader discloses too much, they become easy to predict. A general who broadcasts his plans allows the enemy to anticipate his moves. A negotiator who speaks impulsively will often lose ground before real discussions even begin. In a world obsessed with instant replies and non-stop communication, many fail to recognize that silence isn't passive. It's active, deliberate, and highly strategic. Silence isn't the absence of content, it's the concealment of it, which in many situations is far more potent than any declaration. Machiavelli understood the significance of appearance versus reality. He observed that people are more likely to form opinions based on what they see than what they feel or experience. Everyone can witness your behavior, but very few understand your motivations. This disparity between perception and truth forms the foundation of effective silence. When we remain quiet, we allow others to construct assumptions, often flattering or formidable, based on what they imagine rather than what we actually are. This mystery can become an extraordinary tool. Silence does not imply a lack of strategy, quite the opposite. It is a deliberate pause, a void that others instinctively rush to fill. Most individuals cannot handle silence. It breeds discomfort, uncertainty, and anxiety. They begin to talk, often without thinking, trying to dissolve the tension. In doing so, they give away what a silent person carefully withholds: fears, objectives, intentions, weaknesses. The one who holds back, who waits and listens, is often gathering the most valuable intelligence. Every word the others offer becomes a puzzle piece in a larger picture that the silent observer is constructing. Machiavelli's advice to rulers in The Prince was clear: speak sparingly, especially when the matter is important. Every sentence has the potential to be twisted, misunderstood, or used against you. In politics, in business, in relationships, the same principle applies. Those who speak too freely risk offering ammunition to others. Talk long enough, and eventually, you'll say something that can be turned into a liability. The wise individual understands that even silence is a kind of statement, one that demands interpretation and provokes curiosity. There's also a psychological dimension to this. When someone doesn't speak, others begin to assign meanings to their silence. They may imagine depth, wisdom, authority, or confidence where none may even exist. This automatic projection grants power. The silent figure in a conversation often appears to be in control, while the talkative ones start to reveal their uncertainty. In this way, silence manipulates perception without effort. One of Machiavelli's key beliefs was that the person who knows more than they reveal holds the ultimate power. Knowledge, when carefully guarded, becomes a strategic asset. On the other hand, revealing too much, especially without need, strips away that advantage. In any competitive situation, the side with more information holds the upper hand. Whether in a diplomatic standoff, a high-stakes business deal, or a personal conflict, it's always better to be the one who listens more than they speak. This advantage extends to timing. Often, the first person to speak locks themselves into a particular stance. They give away flexibility and commit to a course of action before fully understanding the terrain. In contrast, the individual who waits, who listens, who assesses, retains adaptability. They can mold their response based on new information. They can choose the most advantageous moment to speak, act, or strike. Machiavelli warned against haste. Rushing into action or conversation can be a fatal flaw. Words spoken too quickly often reflect emotion rather than reason. They expose inner turmoil, unchecked anger, desperation, or anxiety. One careless remark can unravel months of careful positioning. History is littered with examples of individuals who sabotaged themselves with a single unwise comment or impulsive reaction. Silence could have spared them. In The Art of War, Machiavelli emphasized the value of secrecy. He insisted that no plan is more likely to succeed than one that remains hidden until it's ready to be executed. This principle applies beyond military campaigns. The things we don't say, the intentions we keep hidden, the reactions we suppress can give us a decisive advantage. Silence protects our goals from sabotage. It keeps our plans sharp, untested by public scrutiny, and ready for deployment when the timing is right. True silence isn't simply not talking. It's a tool, carefully honed and strategically deployed. Those who wield it effectively understand that it fulfills many roles at once. It shields sensitive thoughts, it builds tension, it invites others to speak, it cultivates flexibility, and above all, it establishes control. It is dominance without aggression. In ancient courts and centers of power, it was often the quietest figure in the room who commanded the most respect. Their words, when they came, carried greater weight, not because of what was said, but because of what had not been. We live in an era where communication is constant. Social media, email, messaging, all demand response. Yet within that noise, those who remain quiet gain an unexpected edge. The person who resists the urge to react, to comment, to explain, to justify, they appear different, intentional, mysterious, in control, and that difference becomes power. While others exhaust themselves explaining every move, defending every thought, the silent strategist observes and calculates. Machiavelli's assertion that people judge more by appearances than reality has never been more true than today. Silence allows us to shape those appearances without revealing what lies beneath. It lets us appear steadfast even when we are reconsidering, calm even when we are raging inside, resolute even when we are weighing alternatives. Every spoken word limits us. It commits us to a position. It exposes a part of our mind. But silence keeps every possibility intact. Most people cannot stand the pressure of unfilled silence. In meetings, in conversations, in debates, they speak not because they have something valuable to say, but because they fear the discomfort of silence. This is where the true strategist finds opportunity. They engineer these moments of tension, then let others break under the weight of it. As they speak to ease the pressure, they reveal far more than they realize. Machiavelli also emphasized the importance of appearance over inner virtue, especially in political and leadership settings. This wasn't cynicism, it was realism. To succeed, he argued, one must often appear virtuous, even while pursuing necessary but difficult decisions behind the scenes. Silence enables this dual approach. It lets one wear the mask of patience, compassion, or confidence while quietly evaluating the battlefield and preparing the next move. Those who lack control over their speech lack control over their fate. They become transparent, easy to read, easy to manipulate. But the individual who speaks only with purpose and intent controls the narrative. They drive outcomes not by force but by restraint. In this way, silence is not just a defensive posture. It is a weapon. Used with skill, it doesn't just protect, it extracts. It forces others to expose themselves, to compensate for the unknown by offering too much information. This technique has proven effective across centuries and cultures. Skilled interrogators, top-tier negotiators, successful leaders, they all know the value of asking a single question and then remaining silent. The pause that follows creates psychological tension. The other person feels they must respond, must elaborate, must explain. They do the heavy lifting, while the silent one listens and gathers everything needed to form a strategy. There is another level to this practice. Silence not only gathers information and builds mystique, it also establishes authority. Those who speak selectively, who use silence to underline rather than fill, are perceived as confident and commanding. People pay attention when they finally speak, precisely because they do not speak often. In contrast, those who constantly chatter, who flood every interaction with words, soon find their voice becoming background noise. This phenomenon is especially relevant in today's world, where attention is a scarce commodity. Amid the noise of opinion, commentary, and constant updates, the quiet person stands out. They are intriguing because they are not trying to be. Their silence becomes magnetic, and when they do speak, their words are amplified by the long anticipation that preceded them. The power of silence also lies in its ability to create space, not just physical silence, but mental space. Time to observe, to reflect, to understand. Machiavelli emphasized that influence and leadership require an intimate understanding of those around us, their fears, their ambitions, their weaknesses. And you can only discover these things if you are listening, truly listening. Speaking gets in the way of that, but silence opens the door. Many fail to cultivate this skill. They confuse speaking with asserting dominance, or worse, with proving their worth. But the opposite is true. The need to constantly verbalize reveals insecurity, not strength. Every unnecessary word becomes a clue to others. Meanwhile, the silent individual allows others to construct a story about them, to project ideas and motives that may or may not align with reality. This is not deception, it's control. Power, as Machiavelli saw it, was about managing appearances while preserving freedom of action. In this way, silence becomes a mirror. People see in the silent figure what they want or fear to see, but the silent one reveals nothing. Their advantage is absolute because their opponent is always guessing. They are the unknown, and in that ambiguity lies strength. There is a certain rhythm to power that few understand and even fewer can master. Machiavelli intuited this deeply. The most influential individuals are not necessarily the most vocal or expressive. Instead, they are the ones who can read the room, anticipate the dynamics, and discern when silence will serve them better than any speech. Power, after all, does not belong to the one who talks the most, but to the one who listens, calculates, and speaks only at decisive moments. Silence plays a central role in this dynamic. It is not simply about restraint or avoidance. It is about shaping the entire interaction. To remain silent is to stay ahead of the flow. It means refusing to give others a clear target, to remain undefined so you cannot be easily opposed. When you speak, you plant your flag, but when you remain silent, you remain mobile, elusive, hard to predict, and harder to counter. Machiavelli understood that revealing too much, too soon, or too easily was dangerous. He wrote that it is perilous to be the first to push for change or introduce a new order. The reason is simple. The one who acts first draws attention and opposition. Similarly, in a conversation or negotiation, the first to commit verbally often finds themselves boxed in. They can no longer adjust their stance without appearing uncertain or inconsistent. Silence, by contrast, buys time and preserves flexibility. An undisciplined mind reveals itself too easily. It speaks without thinking, exposes vulnerabilities, betrays motives, and often undermines its own goals. But the mind that can remain quiet, especially under pressure, is one that others cannot decipher. It becomes unreadable, enigmatic, and therefore powerful. This psychological distance can be used to control the pace and tone of any interaction. The silent individual becomes the one setting the terms, even if they appear passive. Patience, too, is closely linked to silence. And patience is not passivity, it is strategy in motion. It is the ability to wait for the right moment instead of being driven by impulse. In silence, patience becomes visible. Those who cannot wait to speak, to be heard, to act, often give away their hand before the game even starts. But those who wait, who allow silence to do the hard work, position themselves for long-term advantage. Negotiation offers a clear example. It is tempting to talk early and often, to make offers, to fill silence with movement. But the most skilled negotiators know that silence is one of the most powerful tools in their arsenal. It creates discomfort, and discomfort creates revelations. The side that speaks first tends to overextend, to overcompensate, to overexplain. Meanwhile, the quiet negotiator learns more, speaks less, and walks away with better terms. Machiavelli would have appreciated this. He saw that success in politics, war, and life depended not just on what was done, but on what was perceived. And perception is shaped just as much by silence as by speech. Silence projects confidence, control, even intimidation. It forces others to imagine what you might be thinking or planning, and in that uncertainty, they often defeat themselves. It is worth noting that Machiavelli's insights were not just applicable to monarchs and generals. They apply equally to everyday power dynamics, at work, in relationships, in public life. Anyone who seeks to influence others, to build authority, to lead or persuade, must understand that silence is not a void to be filled, but a space to be respected, cultivated, and weaponized when needed. Most people are so uncomfortable with silence that they destroy their own credibility just to break it. They over-explain themselves, justify things unnecessarily, share feelings that would be better kept private. And each of these utterances becomes a clue, a thread to be pulled by others. The person who waits, who lets silence hang heavy in the air, often hears more than they ever would have by speaking. There's also a theatrical aspect to silence. In moments of tension, in high-stakes meetings or debates, silence creates atmosphere. It builds anticipation. People lean in, wait for your words, and when they come, they are taken more seriously simply because they were delayed. Every moment of silence is a kind of pressure, a kind of gravity that adds weight to whatever follows. It is not only what is said, but when it is said, and silence allows you to choose your timing with precision. By not speaking, you remain uncommitted. You remain available to adjust your stance, to test the waters, to let others define themselves first. And when you finally do speak, your words come with more power, because they arrive after thought, not impulse. In this way, silence becomes a form of control. Those who master it are rarely caught off guard, because they spend more time observing than reacting. They notice the slips in others' speech, the contradictions, the insecurity hidden beneath bravado. They watch, they store details, and they use them later when it matters. In contrast, the talkative person rarely has a full grasp of what's going on. They're too busy trying to be heard. The modern world makes it harder than ever to value silence. We are constantly encouraged to share, to comment, to react. Social media is designed for speed and volume, not reflection. But those who can step back from that rhythm, who can resist the urge to participate in every conversation, gain a rare and valuable clarity. Their restraint becomes its own signal of strength, of purpose, of independence. In many ways, the most successful figures today still follow the old Machiavellian logic, whether consciously or not. They don't broadcast every opinion. They don't speak unless it serves a function. And when they do, it's often at a moment that maximizes their impact. Silence allows their words to land like a well-placed blow, precise, deliberate, impossible to ignore. It is also worth considering how silence affects personal relationships. In a world full of people desperate to be understood, those who listen become rare and cherished. People naturally open up to those who say little but listen well. And in doing so, they reveal things they might never have admitted under direct questioning. The silent individual, if they are perceptive, can gather insights that others miss entirely. This does not mean being unresponsive or cold. It means choosing your words with intent. It means letting others speak first, not out of fear but out of strategy. It means knowing that a well-timed silence can do more to shift a conversation than 1,000 clever arguments. Even in conflict, silence holds enormous power. An angry response escalates, but a calm, wordless pause disarms. It forces the other person to question their assumptions. It shifts emotional momentum. And in that moment of confusion or doubt, the silent party gains ground. They are not reacting, they are deciding. Machiavelli often warned that excessive speech opens one to betrayal. In politics, every word can become evidence. In courtrooms, in boardrooms, in personal disputes, what you say can and will be used against you. Silence, by contrast, creates no trail. It leaves nothing to misinterpret. It creates safety. More importantly, silence leaves room for adaptation. When you haven't committed yourself in speech, you can adjust your approach at any moment. You can shift alliances, pivot strategies, and still maintain your integrity. Those who speak too early often find themselves trapped by their own words, forced to defend a position that no longer serves them. This is one of the greatest long-term advantages of strategic silence. It preserves your freedom. Freedom to think, to change course, to stay ahead. You are not locked into a narrative because you haven't handed that narrative to others. You retain authorship of your own story. And those who watch you from the outside, they see what they want to see. Your silence becomes a canvas for their projections. They imagine complexity, intelligence, certainty, whatever fits their frame. This allows you to influence without ever speaking. You shape the field without moving a muscle. At the heart of all this lies a simple truth. The more others speak, the more you learn. The more you speak, the less you can hear. And those who know the most, not those who speak the most, are the ones who hold real power. This power of silence is not about deception, though it may involve withholding. It's about clarity. It's about knowing when speaking helps and when it hurts. It's about making every word count and recognizing that sometimes the strongest statement you can make is to say nothing at all. Machiavelli's lessons are enduring because they tap into something fundamental. Human beings crave certainty. They want to understand, to predict, but when faced with silence, they struggle. That struggle makes them reveal themselves, often without realizing it. And those who have mastered silence know how to listen with more than their ears. They listen with intent, with strategy, with purpose. In any room, the quietest person is often the most attentive, and often the most dangerous, not because they are aggressive, but because they are unknown, unreadable, unshakable. While others rush to assert themselves, the silent one collects leverage, watches for weakness, and when the moment comes, they act, not randomly but with surgical precision. This is not silence born from shyness or uncertainty or passivity. This is silence as discipline, as a method, as an active part of power itself. The kind of silence that doesn't avoid the fight but wins it before it begins. In a world of endless chatter, where attention is cheap and speech is constant, those who understand this ancient wisdom will always stand apart. While others talk themselves into corners, the silent strategist walks freely, invisible, and in control. And so, it is worth asking, not just once but often. How often do you speak out of habit rather than purpose? How often do you share when you should be listening? How often do you give away what could have been your advantage, just to ease a moment of silence? Those who study power, who seek to wield influence with intent, must understand what Machiavelli saw so clearly. Silence is not what happens when there is nothing to say. Silence is what you choose when you have everything to gain.